There are various kinds of musics in different cultures all over the world. Those musics have developed individually in their own cultures, however, there are some links between them. I'm going to focus on musical links between Japanese festival song and Spanish gypsy song. The reason why I chose these cultures is simple, because there seemed to be no major cultural exchange between Japanese people and Spanish gypsies historically. It would be interesting if some kind of musical links can be seen between cultures with no contact. Here is the quick introduction of two of the genres. Most of the Japanese festival songs have a long history from Edo period 400 years ago. They are sang during the summer festival, and people play traditional Japanese instruments and dance along with the songs. It often uses Japanese traditional scale, and the rhythm developed in its own way. From many different kinds of Japanese festival songs, I am going to analyze awa odori, one of the most famous dance music in Japan. Spanish gypsy songs had huge impact on Spanish musical history since it hugely influenced the music known as flamenco. Gypsies, to say in other words, Romani people, sang, dance, and play music as they travel around. Its distinctive music consists of rapid change in tempo and dynamics, and soulful vocals. I would analyze the piece from the movie about Romani people called Lacho Drum, Safe Journey. Now, let's move on to the analysis of each piece. First is the awa odori from Japanese festival music. As I mentioned, awa odori is one of the most famous festival dance music in Japan. There are several kinds of awa odori, so I will focus on the one called Yoshikono. This piece has 2-beat feel with time signature 6-8. The tempo is allegro and constant until the last part where it gets faster. It is based on Japanese scale called Honkumoi Joshi. Honkumoi Joshi is a pentatonic scale for Japanese instrument koto, but in this piece 2 extra notes are added to make it D Frisian scale. The key doesn't change throughout the piece, and both instruments and vocal follows this scale most of the time. However, one interesting point about this piece is that there are parts where vocal doesn't follow the Frisian scale. Listen to the following part to get the idea. The first note of the vocal part is F, but all the other notes cannot be distinguished. This is the most noticeable characteristic of the piece Yoshikono. The instruments used in this piece are all Japanese traditional instruments. Shinobue plays the melody part, accompanied by shamisen, drums, and shoko. When the piece is in vocal part, these instruments play the same part again and again as a bass part, and when it gets to the instrumental part, Shinobue comes front to play the melody part. Next, let's see how the piece is structured. The piece can be divided into 4 main sections: introduction, vocal, instrumental, and coda. The introduction section starts off with solo shamisen part. This part has quite important role since it decides the rhythm pattern of the whole piece. Throughout the piece, shamisen part plays the bass line with the swing-like rhythm of combination of dotted quarter notes and quarter note like this. This kind of repetition of same rhythm is called a rhythmic ostinato. After the introduction section, vocal section comes. There are 2 main parts in this section, part A and part B. Part A is where vocal parts doesn't follow D Frisian scale. The section is formed in the pattern A, B, A, B, A. And as each part repeats, we can clearly notice that the form is strophic. For same melodic parts A and B, there are different words each time. After that comes the instrumental section. This section can also be divided into 2 parts. Let's call it part C and part D. The section is in binary form, as 2 parts repeats in the pattern C, D, C, D. In both C and D, Shinobue plays the melody line and other instruments play the bass line. Lastly, coda comes after the instrumental section. No vocal part takes place in this section, but what is significant is the use of small gong called shoko. Shoko acts as a composer in the piece and it decides the tempo. In this coda part, there is a change in tempo. Listen to the part where tempo gets faster. You would notice the role of shoko increasing the tempo. And at the very last part, they are ritardando to show that the piece ends here. Before moving on to the next piece, the existence of linking passage has to be mentioned. Here's the linking passage of this piece. This passage can be heard from the Shinobue part and vocal part. Although the piece has many different sections, the whole piece sounds united because of this linking passage. The second piece to analyze is Spanish Gypsy Flamenco Song. This piece is from the movie called Notre Dame. It is a French documentary film in 1993 about the journey of Romani people. This song is sang in the last part of the film to sing about the distress of being a gypsy woman. Not only in this period but in some places until now, Romani people are discriminated by its exclusive culture. This piece is in duple with time signature 4/4. The tempo is allegro and is constant throughout the piece. It is based on the Frisian scale. Gypsy music is known as using gypsy scale, which is also known as Frisian dominant scale or altered Frisian scale. However, in this piece, not the gypsy one, but the basic Frisian scale is used. The piece is in C-sharp Frisian in the beginning when guitar is playing. But the key changes when the voice part begins. It is still in Frisian mode though, it becomes D Frisian. There are only two instruments used in this piece. One is guitar. Guitar is one of the most popular instruments in Spanish music such as flamencos, and so is used in this piece too. Another instrument used in the piece is hand clap. Hand is also an important instrument for gypsies. Listen to how they use hand as a percussion. Hand clap helps punctuate and accentuate the music. Next, let's see the structure of the piece. The piece begins with the solo part of guitar. Let's call this part the introduction section. The introduction section is repeating a major melody line. Two guitars are played in this part, and what to focus on here is the use of syncopation. While one guitar is playing the melody, you would notice the other guitar is playing the notes on offbeat. Listen to this part of the piece. This is called syncopation, where weak notes are emphasized. The use of syncopation makes the rhythm of the piece unsure and sound mysterious. Also, this is a rhythmic ostinato, where same simple rhythm repeats over and over again. After the introduction section, vocal part comes. This part has different key from the previous section. It changes from C-sharp Frisian to D Frisian. Right before the section begins, there is a pause for a few seconds, and this acts as a punctuation of the key. The vocal parts are structured A, B, A, C, B, and is in a song form. Part A is a solo vocal part with accompaniment of guitar. These guitar parts also have a syncopated rhythm. Also, during Part A, hand clap occurs for the first time. The hand clap parts are divided into two groups. One claps on the on beats and other claps on the off beats. After that part, Part B comes, where other vocal parts appear. However, solo vocalist and other vocalist doesn't sing together here. Listen to what's going on. The song is in the call and response style. When one person sings, other people follows and sing after that. We can clearly hear the call and response of the music. After Part B, Part A comes again with different lyrics. Then Part C comes. In Part C, guitar changes its moods. Before Part C comes, guitar was always playing the similar bass part rhythmically. But in Part C, guitar part changes and begins to play chords. And finally, the piece ends after repeating Part B. From the analysis of each piece, I would like to compare and contrast the musical elements. First, there were few musical links found between awaodori and Spanish gypsy music. One is that they are both using Frisian scale. Japanese awaodori is in D Frisian, and Spanish gypsy music is in C sharp and D Frisian. As I mentioned before, Frisian scale of awaodori is the outer scale of Japanese pentatonic scale Honkumoi-joshi. Similarly, Frisian scale of the Spanish gypsy music is the outer scale of gypsy scale. It is interesting that traditional scales from each cultures are modified to same scale as a result. Another musical link can be seen in the rhythmic pattern. In both pieces, string instruments are used as the accompaniment of melody line. The interesting point of this string accompaniment is that in both pieces it repeats the same rhythm over and over. This is called the rhythmic ostinato. In awaodori, shamisen keeps playing the same rhythm. While vocal part sings the melody line. This constant rhythm connects the different sections of the pieces into one. Likewise, the guitar part of Spanish gypsy has rhythmic ostinato. It is not as obvious as awaodori though. We can hear guitar playing the same rhythm and contribute to join the pieces together. There are some other similarities, such as small change in dynamics, moves in two, vocal and instrumental piece, and constant time signature. Also, there are differences between these pieces. While awaodori has same key signature throughout the piece, Spanish gypsy has change in key signature. Awaodori has changes in tempo, but no changes in Spanish gypsy. Also, Spanish gypsy has call and response of two vocal parts, but awaodori has only single voice part. Lastly, the most significant difference between these pieces is that which note they put emphasis on. Awaodori has a rhythmic pattern, and we know that first and third note, which are on beats, are emphasized. On the other hand, if you listen to Spanish gypsy song, you can hear second and fourth notes, which are off beats, emphasized. In conclusion, by comparing Japanese festival song awaodori and Spanish gypsy flamenco song, there were two major musical links between them. One is that both pieces are using Frisian mode. Another is that in both pieces, rhythmic ostinato can be heard. I found it interesting that songs from different cultures with weak connection, having some common musical elements. I hope you enjoyed it too. This is the bibliography of my investigation. Thank you.